Welcome to the Ditch the Struggle podcast. I'm your host, Alana Rosso. I'm a graphic designer turned career and success coach who knew I could do better, but kept falling short of where I wanted to go. But after years of exploring personal and career development, business, money mindset, and energy work, I'm here to tell you that yes, you can move from stuck and defeated to empowered and confident. Ready to dive in? Awesome. Together, let's ditch the struggle. Hi, everyone. We have a conversation with a coach today who will help you look at burnout and time management in a totally different way. I learned so much. And, I know we have a lot of conversations about these topics often, but this is different, I promise you. Michelle Niemeyer is a speaker, coach, and former attorney who teaches professionals how to bend time so they can stay sharp, productive, and profitable without burning out. After finding her way to burnout and back, in her own high-performing legal career, Michelle created the Art of Bending Time, a framework that helps people connect the dots across work, life, and purpose to magnetize success and reclaim their joy. She helps businesses retain top talent, boost development, and keep their people energized and engaged, all while making the magic happen. Let's dive right in. Welcome, Michelle. I'm thrilled to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Alana. It's nice to meet you.
I'm excited to dive into this conversation because you have had a life that I can't imagine, that I know you've been an attorney and you're doing some really amazing work with burnout, changing your life, looking at things differently, having different perspectives on where you put your energy. So tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Okay, and I'm going to do this quickly because we have a lot of information to go over and I could spend years on the backstory. I started my career in DC in a firm that did national work on very, very large insurance coverage claims. So I was part of a team of lawyers. We traveled all over the country. We took depositions. We reviewed documents, typical junior lawyer stuff. Participated in writing giant briefs with big teams. Some of the work I did is now remote, which I think is sad. The fun part of what I did was the travel, was the collegiality of working with a team of other lawyers. And now people are doing that work sitting at their desk, looking at documents in their office at home. And they're often doing the depositions on Zoom calls. So it's not the same for a lot of people today as it was when I was doing that. I then moved to Florida after 5 years. I worked in two different environments. I worked in the firm that is now the Boyce Schiller Miami office for people who know what the firms are. That was a great experience. Awesome people, loved it, but it wasn't specialized. I was in commercial litigation. I felt like I was a fish out of water doing all this stuff that was new to me in an environment that was really different. Florida law is weird as heck. And I was highly specialized in something. So I ended up accepting an offer with a great big giant raise to go to a boutique firm that did what I did. I was there for 5 years. I chose to leave. I'll put it this way. I was kind of driven out by the behavior of one of my partners who wasn't a very good person to work with. It was very challenging. So I walked away with 2 contingency fee clients and started my own law practice in 2003. And that was stressful, hard, very gratifying in a lot of ways. I got to choose who I worked with. It was a lot of work. There were times I had support. There were times I didn't. I got divorced along the way. And just recently, after 33 years of law practice, I walked away from law. And I need to backtrack a little to give you the length of this timeline. It's not like I just said, oh, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. In 2015, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And I deep dove into learning about holistic health, about personal development, about all the things you can do to reduce stress, to manage autoimmunity, because I'm sure you're aware, the medical world says autoimmune diseases are uncurable and there's nothing we can do except give you, in my case, there's a drug that does help with part of the disease process, but the part of the disease process that has to do with stress triggering autoimmune responses and all that, and whether it's diet, whether it's work stress, whatever it is. I decided to attack all of that, and I did. And I became a certified health coach in the process.
That's
At the time,
incredible.
not planning on becoming a coach, not planning on using that except to learn. But over time, I realized I had shifted so much that what had been a really bad case of burnout in about 2013, 14 had turned into I liked my job again. I was doing really great, but I also kind of wanted out and wanted change. And I decided to start this new business helping people who were like I was 10, 15 years ago. People who were really struggling to get the work done, really struggling with the beginning stages of burnout. And the reason that my program involves a lot of time management is because, and I think we didn't really talk about this, but the program is called The Art of Bending Time. The reason I created it was because when I was that person who was just starting to feel like I hated being a lawyer, I was feeling really detached. I was feeling like I just needed out, but I didn't know how to get out. And I was dependent on the income. And I just, there's so much that's involved with leaving a profession that you've decided you don't like anymore. And sometimes you decide you don't like it anymore because you're in burnout. So when I first was in that place, I didn't know I was getting burned out. I thought I hated being a lawyer and I thought I needed help with time management. And the first thing I ever did when I bought a course to try to help myself was I bought a time management program.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that because I really truly believed that I was disorganized. I believed that I was just not efficient in handling all the stuff I had to handle.
Mm-hmm. I get that question a lot from clients. It's like that's what they first go to is they think they just have a time management problem or they need to structure their day differently. That can
Yeah,
be part of it. But it sounds like things were creeping up that were really impacting your time management as opposed to time management being the issue, the core issue.
exactly. And I
Right.
think that's true for most people or a lot of people. You didn't get through a professional school program, right? You didn't get your MBA, you didn't get your CPA, you didn't get your law degree or whatever it is that gets you into this high level, powerful job. You didn't get there by being inefficient with your time.
Right. So there's some evidence.
Everybody
Yeah.
who's gotten to a good job was at one time good at handling their time, or they would never have made it that far.
Right. Right.
But a lot of us hit this wall. We get to the point where we're like, let's say 35 to 45, 50, right? And we're in a really good place in our career. And we've been promoted a bunch of times and we've got a team of people working for us. And yes, that adds different types of responsibilities. But we were always good at handling our time. We need to
Mm-hmm.
maybe learn how to do it differently. And we need to do the things that take care of ourselves.
Right. So, how did your burnout creep up on you? What did you start to notice?
Well, I felt dead inside, honestly, dead inside. I reached a point where things that had been fun were not fun anymore. I didn't really want to do things. I stopped calling my friends back. It was like depression, but not depression. I just was like, I just want to go home and like do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm with people, I'm disengaged, not just at work. I was feeling disengaged generally, but I was especially feeling disengaged professionally. And that meant that I was hiding in my office with my door closed. It meant that I was not seeing the positives in what I was doing. I was seeing a lot more of the negatives. And where things used to make me happy and light me up in the process. And this is the thing I can tell people. I mean, you need to enjoy the journey
Mm-hmm.
and you need to find ways to see that part again. There used to be a time probably when aspects of the journey were satisfying to you.
Yeah.
But when you're burned out, you stop seeing that and you
Right.
stop feeling it.
Yeah.
And that's when you really start to be like, burnout starts to affect you in other ways. You're not taking care of yourself. Maybe you stop working out. Maybe you're not eating well. Maybe, in my case with law, and I know this is true of a lot of people in legal jobs, we get deadlines and the deadlines often when you're getting burned out, you're also procrastinating. And when you're procrastinating, you're working till midnight, 2, 3 in the morning, pulling all-nighters.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon. I mean, people think it is. It's not uncommon. People pull all-nighters to write a brief. They sleep 2 hours, and that can't be sustainable over time.
You're just living off cortisol at that
Yeah,
point.
and it's absolutely not sustainable, and you reach a point where you crash.
Was that part of the culture? And was it accepted and was that considered normal? And so was there a part of you that felt like you just had to kind of keep doing that routine?
To some degree, it was part of the culture. I think in a lot of firms, it's absolutely part of the culture. I had an interview with a law firm when I was in law school where they bragged about the fact that they had a sleeping dorm in the office.
Yeah.
So if you had to work really late, you could catch a nap in the sleeping dorm before you started working again the next morning. And they were
Yeah.
very proud of that, right? And in
Yes.
a lot of the big cities like New York, they have car services so that they can take you home at 11 or 12 o'clock. And they have, they literally cater to that type of environment.
Right.
I had at one point in my DC firm, we had a team of 5 lawyers working on a project where there was a brief being written that was collaborated between a bunch of different law firms, and everybody was writing parts of it. And the day before it was due, or 2 days before it was due, our entire team pulled an all-nighter. And at 2, 3 in the morning, for those who are familiar with K Street, we played football on K Street at 3 in the morning. And we did it because my boss wanted to get everybody woken up because everybody was dragging their feet because they were tired. And we needed to get something done by the time, like, early in the morning so that it could go out by courier because that was in courier days. But this doesn't change. Like, it was going to get sent by a courier to Delaware to be filed. And ultimately what happened was it got sent with me to be filed because I was a law clerk in Delaware, and it was done so late that they thought that it might not make it into the clerk's office unless somebody they knew showed up with the boxes.
Oh my gosh. I hear about this kind of culture. It's not just in the legal world. Like advertising is, which I would have worked in a little bit, not as
Mhm.
intensely as some of my friends or people I know. You would just sleep overnight in the office, and it was
Yeah.
celebrated, and it's part of the culture, and it was like a way to prove how hard you're working,
And
how
for a while,
valuable.
it's fun. For a
Yeah,
while, it's fun. Playing football in the middle of K
yeah,
Street at 3 in the morning was fun. It was team building. It was cool. But it was also, let's face it, the culture that goes with that in the long term can be very destructive. In that firm, it really was only a once in a while thing. But I know people in other firms where it wasn't a once in a while
mhm.
thing. It was kind of expected a lot of the time. And when that becomes the norm, or when you do that to yourself as the norm, which I started doing that to myself as the norm, it's really problematic.
Right, so how did you start to pull away from that? Like, was it the autoimmune? What was it that really made you decide to take different steps and start making those changes?
So I had sort of I'll call it a 2-step process. The first step was the autoimmunity, but we didn't know it yet.
Okay.
So I had a really painful experience where I thought I had appendicitis, and I went to the emergency room. And 3 in the morning, couldn't go to sleep. I'm having this horrible pain. I got up, I drove myself to the emergency room. They did blood testing and they thought I had gallstones. And they did an ultrasound and couldn't see gallstones. And so they said, "Oh, it's probably gallstones. Sometimes we just can't see them. You need to follow up, go to a gastroenterologist." But did I do that? No, of course I did not. I was like, "Oh, gallstones, that's a lifestyle thing. I can change how I eat. I'll start exercising. Like I've gotten out of shape." And I did that. So for about a month, I just exercised. I tried to eat better. I lost about 5 pounds. And then I had an assistant at the time who was a Beachbody coach, and I'd watched her lose about 40 pounds, and I'd watched her do some amazing things physically. She ran 2 marathons, full marathons, 2 weeks apart.
Oh my gosh.
And the second one was the Miami Marathon, and it went through near where I lived, and I went to cheer for her at mile 20. And I'm not joking, she's loping along like a deer, like
Wow.
on mile 20 in her second in 2 weeks full marathon. And I'm looking at this going, what the hell are you on? Right? Like I want some of that. And so I asked her about it and she's like, oh, well, I've been doing, I'm cross training my running with the Beachbody program and it's so great. And so I signed up and I did a program. And then I signed up as a coach because I wanted the discount on the shakes.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave me access to personal development for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Because really, like in law at the time, there's lip service to personal development, but there isn't a lot of it. And I was not aware of a lot of these things. So that was the first step. That was like, there were a few things that came out of that time frame. There was a little bit of personal development. I became aware of those things. I became someone who did work out every day, did follow a meal plan and try to eat right, and learned a little bit more about nutrition and that, right? The pain went away. So I thought that it was gallstones and I thought it was gone. And I didn't have any other physical thing where I thought something was wrong. I was feeling a lot better in a lot of different ways. And then a year after that, I had a UTI and I went to the doctor thinking I'm just going for antibiotics. And the doctor took blood tests and told me, oh, I want you to come in. And I mean, who does this, right? Can you come in to talk to me about your blood test results? I'm thinking I must have cancer or something.
Yeah.
This has got to be serious. And I go in there and he explains to me that, well, you see, I did this liver panel. And when you were in the hospital last year, remember, they thought you had gallstones. And here's the liver panel from then. And it was twice as high in a definable pattern, which my doctor didn't know what it meant. But he's like, this can't be good. It's obviously not gallstones or you'd be in brutal pain from that. It would have shown up as gallstones by now. But something's really wrong. And so you should go see somebody. And I did. And they diagnosed me with something called primary biliary cholangitis, which if you look it up online is scary as hell. You'll find things that say that people with this who go untreated basically will die or need a liver transplant within 10 years.
Wow.
And even the people who are treated with the drug that they had at the time, it only works for 60% of the people. So 40% aren't getting the benefit. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my God, right? But at least I'd had the ability already. I'd learned how to control my diet and be really rich, like really rigid with it. I'd learned how to do the exercise that I needed to do. I'd learned about personal development. And I happen to have had a family member who cured pancreatic cancer with nutrition and acupuncture like years ago. And so I wasn't 100% like, this is what doctors say and this is what I'm going to believe. The first doctor I saw, my first treating hepatologist, told me there was nothing you could do as far as the disease will have caused some damage. If it's caused damage, you can't fix that. But what you can do is if the drug works, it'll stop it from progressing any further. And if you stay in remission, if you don't stay in remission, you're going to have further damage. I'm like, okay. And he didn't really explain the drug very well. So I didn't understand at that point how it worked. I had a friend who was a naturopath. I did a raw foods diet for a while. I did a really extreme elimination diet to address any kind of food sensitivities, anything like that. I discovered I have a really bad gluten response, so I stopped eating gluten. I'm not as religious about the workouts anymore, but I do take care of myself, and I live in this city where I walk to everything, and I get a lot more activity than most people do. And over the last 10 years, I've reversed the damage from the disease. Where it was stage 2 when they diagnosed me, it's stage 0 now, which is based on an ultrasound that they do for that disease. And so I was able to reverse it, is my point. It also made a big difference in other things. And one day I kind of went, wait a minute, like I feel good about work. I feel good about life. I'm happy. I'm doing well. all these things are coming together and feeling better now that I'm doing all this stuff. And then I kind of went, maybe I should be using this health coaching school education I got in learning about the disease. That's one of the things I did to learn was I literally went all the way through a 42-week program to get a certification to learn about nutritional health coaching because I wanted to be able to deal with that. And so I took all that together and I went, okay, what have I done? I sat down one day and I created a mind map and went, what are all the things I've done to change this? And how is it that I've gone from like being really burned out to actually, by the time I exited law, I really loved what I was doing again. And I had my most successful, best case like ever as my last case. So I feel really good about that. And, but I also know that I can reach so many more people who are in the place I was in 15 years ago who don't need to be there.
Mhm.
If I could have caught myself before I started the process that made me sick and made me go through this whole thing, I want to do that.
I think that story brings so much hope for not only people that are suffering from autoimmune, that they can reverse it, but
Right.
also that you can love your work again. And I think when you're in burnout and you're exhausted, and I know what it's like to really hate what you're doing at points because I've been there, you just cannot imagine enjoying it again.
Yeah.
And it's such a sad feeling. There's like the grief that comes with that. There's the frustration. There's the shame, like I've wasted my whole life. There's just all these thoughts that go through
Yeah,
your
for
head,
sure.
you know?
And I mean, I feel I'm lucky in that I don't have children. I don't have like a family relying on me. I'm not like my sister has 3 kids and 2 of them are starting their lives after high school graduation this year and another one 2 years later. Like those obligations make it really hard for somebody to walk away from a well-paid job. I got very lucky. I had a nice payout that allowed me to shift gears in a way so that now I'm in this new thing and I could do that. I couldn't have done that if I'd had people relying on me. I would have probably said, I still need to continue being a lawyer because it pays well, because et cetera. But by the time I did that, honestly, like I was enjoying it again.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't be like, oh, I'll never do that again, except that I really want to do this other thing instead. And part of it is there are things, and this is what I always try to help people find. There are things that light us up. And those things that light us up are different for everybody, but they're not dependent on the thing you're doing exactly. You might, for instance, you said you told me that you were a graphic designer at one point. So you must love art and creating things and that process. And if you can love that creative process and you can love seeing the finished product when you did something that you just feels really good when you've finished it or you like the process of getting there, you can apply that in lots of different kinds of work. So you don't have to necessarily apply it in something new, for instance. You could find a way to apply it in what you're doing now if you need to stay doing what you're doing now. Or you could find other things that light you up in that. And if you can find those sparks that light you up and you can get those in your everyday, you start feeling more driven about what you're doing. You start getting that joy back.
How do you suggest people start to find those like little pieces of joy, those sparks, those little glimmers when they're in that burnout phase? So how
Right.
can they start to look for it in a way that's not overwhelming?
Yeah. So, and it's hard. It can be hard. I actually start all my clients on a phase that I call busyness detox. And the reason I do that is how many people do you know, especially when they're in that burnout place, they're literally reactively busy to everything, right? You ask them if they want to get lunch, they say, "Oh, I'd love to, but I'm so busy." They're too busy to have fun. They're too busy to do something on the weekend. They're too busy to have a phone conversation with a friend. They're too busy for everything. And
Yeah.
it's like this thing in their head. It's either worn as a badge of honor because they're in a culture that expects them to be busy all the time, or they literally feel that overwhelmed that they think they can't say yes to 5 minutes, right? So the first thing we do in there is we do an exercise on clarity. And the exercise is to help you identify those things that light you up. And what I do is I actually work with people with, it's almost like a guided meditation where you start looking back on, it doesn't have to be from today. It could be things in your childhood. It could be things early in your career. It could be recent. And they don't have to be work related. They can be personal. But for instance, think about a time when you were really proud of something you accomplished. And then, what was going on then? What is it that you were proud of? What were you doing in the moment? Who were you with? How did it make you feel? Where did you feel it in your body? Was it hard? Was it that you overcame a big challenge? Was it that you were proud because people around you were impressed by it? What made it a proud moment for you? Was there something that made you laugh so hard you couldn't stop? What was that? And you go through this process, you start thinking about these things, visualizing them, putting yourself in that moment and feeling how it felt.
Mm.
When you do that, you get to that and you go, and I have people journal about it as well. And so you find those moments. What was it? You may realize that, for instance, you're very physical. And for me, one thing I realized was I was always less burned out and always felt better when I was following a regular workout routine. And when you go back to it, I was a swimmer since I was 6 years old. I always had something physical, right? I was the kid who was doing acrobatics in the family room, just handstands and backflips and stuff. And I was running around all the time till the people told me to stop. You know what I mean? And without that physical outlet, a little piece inside of me was dying. I needed that, right? And that had nothing to do with my job. It had nothing to do with my home life. And it was something that just by adding that back in, it made me feel better about everything. And people realize, you don't realize how much those things can affect you.
Mm-hmm.
And they affect everything about your life. If you're sitting at a desk all day and you're a physical person, being a lawyer is the worst choice for me in a way because it's such a desk-bound kind of job and I'm a physical person. And so what do you do about that? You have to find a way to get that outlet for yourself. And you have to, once you do that, what you find is that you get more time. And this is where the bending time comes in. If you're dead inside and you're struggling to function because you're not getting something you need, whether it's healthy food, whether it's enough sleep, whether it's physical activity, and those are the basic building blocks, right, of being healthy. If you're missing out on part of that and you're trying to function in a high-level job that's really challenging, you're going to start spinning your wheels. And you're going to find once you give yourself that thing, maybe it takes you a half hour a day, maybe it takes you an hour a day, you're going to get 2 or 3 hours of productivity out of it. Just by doing that thing you need. We think that we have trouble managing our time, but really what we're doing is we're making our bodies and our minds incapable of being productive. And then we feel like we don't have time.
Yes. Yes. You've just nailed
So
it
you're
there.
taking time to do something you need. Don't think of that as selfish. Don't think of that as something that's I don't have time for that because when you add that in, you've just doubled the value of the time you have in the rest of your day.
I love that you use the word selfish because people do feel that way. They feel like
Yeah,
even taking a workout is selfish.
right. And
You
it's
know?
not. It's
Yeah.
actually fuel.
Yeah.
And if you start thinking of it as fuel, you start thinking it's nutrition is fuel. Working your body out is fuel. Getting enough sleep is fuel. And when you think of it that way, and then you look at how much more productive you can be during that day, you don't have to work 11 or 12 hours. You can work 8 hours and get the same amount of work done. And you don't realize it because you've been starving yourself of those things for so long.
Starving yourself. I think that's a great way to put it. It's just that we're just depriving ourselves of the things that we actually need to not only be fulfilled, but to make the most use of our time.
Right. And I call that the low-hanging fruit in what I do. I've seen people double their productivity just by doing those things. And that's easy stuff. Then you can look at things like what are the things I call internal and external time sucks. I have a character in my program I call Time Suck Ninja. The goal is for you to become a Time Suck Ninja, right? So what you want to start doing is like looking at what are the things I do in my life that I'm doing because I'm comforting myself. I'm self-soothing through scrolling on my phone and Instagram, or through playing a game, or through turning on the TV and watching Netflix, or whatever that thing is that you do, and we all have them. They're usually not furthering whatever we need to be doing. And they usually don't really help that much, right? If they help at all. But they're a way for us to retreat for a moment. What if instead of doing that, you literally take 10 minutes to do breath work or to meditate a little bit and just clear your mind and then come back to it? It's going to be so much more productive for you than if you took 10 minutes and got worked up about current politics by looking at your Instagram.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Unless my Instagram is full, I just need my Instagram full of dogs, and then that keeps that's okay. But also, then when your Instagram dog gets sick, it's like a whole other level. But anyway, the point is that we need to connect back to the things that are fueling us, not distracting us. So then I wanted to know, what is some of the resistance that comes up from people when you say, okay, let's potentially take 10 minutes out to do breath work? What happens? What do some people freak out about
Right.
that?
Well, I mean, there's different kinds of resistance. Some kinds of resistance are that a lot of professionals are still kind of adverse to the woo-woo, I'll say, right? So, oh, meditation, I can't do that. That's a waste of time. Or I don't have time for that. Well, yeah, you kind of do. You kind of could
You
take 5
definitely
or 10,
do.
5 minutes, right? Take 5 minutes
Yeah.
and visualize. If you don't want to think about it as meditation, I mean, I had a high school swimming coach who had us do visualization. It's very effective.
I love visualization. I do it every day.
So you do visualization of something that you want to do, or you do
Mhm.
that's maybe something that you feel stressed about. Visualize yourself doing it and doing it well. But there's a lot of, yes, you get resistance for sure, people who don't want to do those things. But there's usually something somebody can be willing to do, at least for 5 or 10 minutes, and start it at 5 minutes if it doesn't feel like it's something you want to do. But the other thing is, you want to be effective and start having, when you have absolute clarity about who you are and what you want and what your goals are, you can start using boundaries as a way to make sure your time is being used effectively.
Mhm.
So if you know what your goals are, and of course, if you have a job and your job involves goals and those goals are your job, you need to consider those your goals, right? But what's your goal for your job might not be the goal of the person who works down the hall who's trying to saddle you with their stuff, for instance. So one thing I work with people on is, how do you appropriately protect yourself from that person down the hall who's trying to saddle you with their stuff?
Yes, please. I think everyone needs to
How do
learn
you
how to
do
do that.
that? How do you do that in a way that doesn't make you look like you're not a team player or whatever?
Yes.
I mean, what I did when I was working in a law firm environment where I had, what's really lovely in a lot of law firms is there's often no real good hierarchy. So in one of the law firms I worked in, it wasn't uncommon for partners who were not that aligned in my team all of a sudden just show up at my desk with something and say, "Hey, can you do this for me? I need it by tomorrow," whatever. They're in a jam. They need somebody. They wander the hall and they find you sitting at your desk, and you are you're their potential target because you happen to physically be there. And you don't want to be somebody who's not participating because all of the partners look at you when you're being considered for partnership, for instance, or for raises or whatever. So what I did was I kept a list on my desk. Literally, the top thing next to my phone on my desk was a legal pad that had every project I was working on, the name of the partner who it was for, and the deadline they'd given me. And I'd just pull that out and I'd say, okay, you need this tomorrow. I'm working on this, this, and this. This is who that one's for. This is who that one's for. I'm not really in a position to decide who's more important here, whose thing is more urgent. And I'm really happy to help you. But could you talk to these two people and see if they're okay? Because if I do your thing, I'm not going to be able to get their thing done on time. And I've had this assignment for a week or whatever. I never had one of those people either trash talk me for not taking their assignment or go to the other partners.
That's a brilliant strategy and so simple. And anyone can
Yeah.
do that. You don't have to be a lawyer to apply that strategy
No,
because,
you could apply it in
yeah,
any environment where you
yes,
have people who are above you in the hierarchy who
yes,
will come and try to drop junk on your desk and ask you to do it, right?
which happens to
And
everybody in corporate right
of
now. It's
course
just
it
like
does.
everyone's just being swamped and overloaded.
Of course it does. And sometimes it might be more important for the overall picture for you to drop this person's thing and take on that person's thing. But if you're not in the position to make that choice and you don't have power in that, just say so, right? It's not your problem.
No, it's not. And I just
and
love this strategy. It's
and
amazing.
and so you can just say, "Hey, I not my job to make these decisions, but can you help me out here?"
Right. Because people, what I've noticed, and I've done this before too, is that you'll just hear that you need to do something and you'll have the knee jerk reaction to take it on. And you're not actually communicating all the other things that you're doing. So
Right.
you're not being transparent and you're also trying to pretend to everyone and yourself that you can take on more and more and more, but in actual fact, you can't.
And And we all love our computer stuff, but having that physical list on your desk is
Yeah.
literally like
Yes.
your weapon.
It's like, it's old school, but I'm here for it.
It's not like you're looking for an excuse. You literally have this thing in front of you where you say, here's my top priority stuff right now. This is how long I think it's going to take or who it's
Yeah.
for or whatever. And it gives you that boundary.
I love
And
that.
it doesn't look like you're trying to dig up an excuse of why you can't do the person's work. It's just like, hey, I'd love to do this for you, but can you help me figure this out?
That's amazing. I love that. What do you recommend to people who are looking for clarity? Because this question comes up all the time in the coaching world.
Right.
They don't know what they want. They don't know how to begin looking for what they want. They just keep saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. How do they find clarity? What's the first step?
Well, again, we go to that clarity exercise, right? So we figure out what lights us up.
Yeah.
Once we figure out what lights us up, we can use that to go, what are the kinds of things I can do where I can get more of that? How do I bring that into my job? How do I bring that into my personal life? Maybe you're not going to get it in your job. Maybe you're like I told you, like maybe you're like me where you have to physically move your body and your job is sitting on your butt at your computer,
Yeah.
right? But how can you maybe get a little more movement into your day at work? And how can you do something in your personal life then that fuels that? Because you need to get it somehow, right? And that can just fix your whole picture. And this is part of the reason why I really am not a big fan of the concept of quote unquote work life balance, because I feel like when we try to divorce our work world from our personal world, it takes away a lot of opportunities. And it also can put us in boxes where we can't allow things to nourish us across the spectrum of our life because we're whole human beings. We're not a work person and a home person.
Especially if you're an entrepreneur, the lines are going to
Yeah,
bleed. They're really going to bleed.
absolutely.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
you need to be able to draw from all the parts of your life and get fueled by all the parts of your life.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of pressure to have work-life balance. Like, it's just, we hear it so much. It's like, I need to achieve this. It's like another thing on our to-do list to achieve.
And it makes you feel like a failure when you don't.
Yeah, so many things out there just make us feel like a failure. I feel like this is one of them.
So, I mean, it's almost like I feel like, in a sense, especially for high achieving professionals, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in a large corporate organization, whatever it is you're doing, let's face it, you've chosen a career that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of bandwidth. Are you a failure for having chosen a job that's not a 9 to 5? Of course you're not. Then don't beat yourself up for it. Because when we have this like work-life balance, you're supposed to accomplish everything in all realms of your world. If you try to do everything, nobody's going to do everything well. Nobody's going to succeed at doing everything all the time and having this boxed, organized life of different pieces, right? Because we're whole human beings. And if we try to do that, we're going to end up feeling like we're falling short at work, we're falling short at home, we're falling short in our community, when we could be integrating it all together. And if we're doing that, we're actually expanding our universe instead of shrinking it.
Mm, that's amazing. So, what kind of person tends to come and see you for coaching?
It's usually somebody who feels like they've got either they're missing something, they are feeling burned out. Like I said, a lot of people, it's people that think that they're not good at time management. A lot of times it's not that they're not good at time management. It's that, yes, they're overinvested in one place or another, but they haven't found ways to integrate it. They haven't found ways to get what lights them up.
And what are some of the key things that people experience, like kind of when they go through this discovery process with you?
What I've seen that's really cool is when people realize for the first time that there's a piece of them that they've been starving.
Mm,
One of the coolest experiences I ever had was with a client who doubled his business in 12 weeks.
oh my.
And he had two major breakthroughs. And one of them was that, like me, he was very kinesthetic. He needed to move his body and he had stopped. He was an entrepreneur with an SEO optimization business. Part of his day was sales calls every day. Part of his day was fulfilling work for clients. And he had moved to a place near the beach so he could surf every day because he loved surfing. That was kind of his dream, was he was going to be able to take off and surf at lunch and that kind of thing. That wasn't happening. And he had a 3-year-old. He was working out with his 3-year-old with his wife in the mornings instead of his workout that gave him like an actual workout. So one of the first things we came up with, because it came up in the clarity exercise that he needed physical movement more than he was getting, was he and his wife started taking their 3-year-old to the beach every day, and he would surf while they
Mm.
worked out on the beach instead of all kind of running around and playing in the house together. And like within a week, we had a conversation. He's like, Michelle, I've doubled my volume of sales calls. And it was just because he came to work pumped, right? He was excited and juiced when he got into the office in the morning. And then he was ready to make calls, and he was making calls with a different attitude
Yeah,
than
different
he was
energy.
making before, because the energies for salespeople, this is huge, right?
Yeah,
Your energy is everything.
everything.
And so then move forward past some other things and we do some goal planning. And one of the things I have people do is breaking down this work-life barrier thing. I have people, when they have a big goal, brainstorm about who do you know who's done this already that they can give you advice, so that you're going to shortcut all that learning curve where you don't know what you're doing. You want to start a new business, but you don't know how. You want to do X, Y, or Z. In his case, it was he wanted to get a camper van and go all around the country. When his kids reach a certain age, he wants to take off and like for a year, just travel and homeschool the kids out of a camper van. And I asked if he knew anybody who'd done this. And he said, well, I don't know anybody who's actually done it, but one of my SEO clients is a company that modifies camper vans. And I said, well, have you talked to them about your goal? Well, no, I haven't. I don't want them to feel like I'm asking for something for free, which I totally get.
Mhm.
Like, he's being paid full price, right? He doesn't want his client to be like, oh, well, now I'm going to barter with you, or feel like he wants a discount because he's asking him about it. So I said, lead the conversation with that. Let him know you're not asking for any kind of discounts or anything. Down the road, you'll probably use his business because you guys do business together, but what you really want is advice and contacts with people who've done this, because you want to learn about
The lifestyle.
what's the process?
Yeah.
How do I deal with the day to day? What do I do about the schooling and this and that? And so he got information, made some contacts, and the next thing we know, he had 5 new clients in that vertical, because this guy was like, "You're not just some SEO guy. You care about what I do.
Yeah.
I'm going to introduce you to my vendors. I'm going to introduce you to some of my customers who turned out to be business owners." And all of a sudden, he had business coming out of this. And it all started as a conversation about a personal goal with somebody in his business realm. And the same thing can happen when you have a business goal conversation with someone in your personal realm. But a lot of times we feel like, oh, I shouldn't talk about that at work, or I shouldn't talk about that at my sailing club or my golf club or whatever thing I do.
I
But
absolutely
when you
love
don't,
that.
you're literally eliminating a huge volume of opportunities and knowledge that could shortcut you from something taking 5 years to taking 2 years.
Right. You're getting out of the silo. And I think we do that when it comes to our connections or our business. We sometimes just we compartmentalize too much and then we're afraid to kind of have those conversations and look where that
Right.
led.
And what's wrong with it, right?
Yeah.
And if you make friends with somebody at work because you said to somebody at work, I want to do X in my personal life, and I've always wanted to do it, but I don't really know where to start. Do you know anybody who's ever done that? And that person has a family member who did it, or whatever, a
Yeah.
friend, and they connect you to someone. You've deepened a relationship now with somebody at work, and you're becoming a friend versus just a colleague.
Yeah.
And when you're a friend versus just a colleague, guess what? When you're in a jam and you need somebody to say, hey, can you help me out? I'm in a jam here. Guess what? They're going to help you. But they might not if you're just the girl with the office down the hall, right?
Yes. 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 I love
It's a
that.
different situation then.
Oh, it's amazing. So now I want to ask you a question I ask everyone, and that is in the spirit of helping people ditch the struggle, what do
Yeah.
you think is most important to commit to?
Figure out what lights you up and get some of it.
Perfect. And that kind of, I was like,
and,
that's a perfect answer
and
because it's true.
proactively
Yeah.
get some of it.
The proactive, can we just sit on that word for a second? Because people will talk a lot about what they want to do or they're thinking, but they're not taking any action. Like that story you just told, that man took action. He picked up the phone, he did the call. It's this stepping into the action piece that I think is
Exactly.
personally key. Yeah.
Exactly. Even if it's something as small as, oh my God, I live in Miami and I never go to the beach. And I think I'm going to go to the beach on Wednesday
Yes.
and get my feet in the sand for 15 minutes, right? Like that can make your day.
It
It can make
totally
your
can.
week.
Yeah.
And it's so little, right? Or get outside. Do something outside of the norm. Do something to get the thing that you love. If you love creating something, you're creative. You love to
Mhm.
paint, let's say you want to create something, create it.
Yeah,
Do
go do it.
something.
And it doesn't
Like,
have to be for money. I think that's also just like that's a huge other conversation, but that all
mhm,
these little things we want to do that bring us joy, that are those sparks that light us up, we
yeah,
think they have to like bring us money or we need to monetize it or they need to be really this big thing.
right. And yet it doesn't have to be. It could be something really small.
Yeah.
I loved art as a kid. I think if I had not been influenced by that world of you're a straight A student, so you're
Mm,
supposed to go into one of these boxes, right? I probably would have been an artist, but
yeah.
I had to give up my art classes at like 8th grade because then I was taking a language and then I was taking calculus and all that crap.
Yeah.
So I do art once in a while just for fun. Am I great at it? No. As I say, I look at my art I finished at the end of a class here or there, and I go, "That doesn't suck."
I know that
And
sometimes
I'm like,
that's
"I'm
my
really
bar
happy
too.
that I did art that didn't suck," right? I enjoyed
Yeah.
the process. I had a
Yeah.
lot of fun doing it. It's not
Yeah.
gonna be my career. Nobody's gonna hire me to paint for them, trust
No.
me.
Yeah.
But I have fun, so why not?
Yes, I think we all have a bit of creativity in us, and it's the fun piece, and that goes back to the finding what lights you up, and we let that all die as we get older, that just, like, inner spark
Right.
just fades
But we
away.
have that piece inside of us that honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not like a church religious person, but I'm very spiritual. I do
Mhm.
believe we're given these things. They're gifts from God. They're part
Yes.
of who we are.
Yeah.
When we're born, when we're children, we
Mhm.
have these things that light us up and make us happy and give us joy. And if we allow ourselves to have those things in our lives, it makes a huge difference.
Mhm. Changes our life.
And sometimes we allow ourselves to be put in these boxes. So
Mhm.
break down the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, I love breaking down walls. I love that. That's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I feel like you're definitely doing that. So how can people work with you? Because the work you're doing is incredible, and I know you're helping a
Thank
lot of
you.
people. So I would love for you to just share how people can work with you and where to find you.
Okay. So I think I gave you something for your notes and you have a link. And I'll also tell people that the easiest way literally is pull out your phone right now. I always tell people to stay away from their phones, but pull out your phone and text the word clarity to 33777. And when you do that, it gives you a way to sign up to be part of a community I have. And that exercise with the clarity meditation is there as a download, as well as a journal prompt and something else I call a SWOT analysis, which is also really helpful. So that way they can get to those things and use them and, do that right away. Get that clarity, because that's
Perfect.
really the first step. To me, it's the first step of getting out of that box and reclaiming who you are that can light yourself up in any circumstance.
It's so empowering to have that clarity.
Yeah. And once you have that, honestly, even if your job is like a drag for 8 hours a day, you're going to find a way to light yourself up during that 8 hours, and it's not going to be a drag anymore.
Yes.
And you're going to be able to do it outside of work. You're going to find things that make you happy. And when you're happy and you're treating yourself well, then you're going to see that your time is going to be spent differently and you're going to just feel so much better.
Amazing. I will be putting all of your information in the show notes so people can connect with you, find your website, all of that stuff. And thank you so much for your time today. I love the stories, but I also just love the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. And I love what you're doing too.
Thanks, Michelle.
Have a good day.
Thank you for joining me today on Ditch the Struggle. You showing up here means so, so much to me. To dig deeper into the topics discussed today and to learn about my work, visit alanarosa.com. And don't forget to download your free resources while you're there. And if this episode resonated with you, please share with others who also want to ditch the struggle. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating and a review, and let me know what you'd like to see more of on this podcast. And before I go, I want to leave you with my 3 favorite ways to ditch the struggle. Be your own best advocate, take baby steps for the win, and forget about a linear career path. It's overrated and you are doing just fine. See you next time.